Hello, welcome back. My name's Mary English, and my web address for this particular podcast is astromary.libsyn.com. So that's astromary.libsyn.com. And if you pop over to the website every now and again, you'll see that I do add extra data for each lesson, so you can have easy links to the charts that I'm talking about, or the things that I'm waffling on, or links to this and that and the other, so that you don't have to remember everything I've said, because unless you want to replay things, you'll be able to get the information on there. Now, as I said last week, I thought this week would be a good idea for us to go back and go through the early lessons, just to check that you understand exactly what a birth chart is. And in episode 1, we were discussing chart shapes, and on episode 2, we were doing locomotive, seesaw, bowl and splay. Episode 3 was the bowl, bucket, cluster and splay again. And on those first 3 episodes, I'm using real data from real live human beings. And unfortunately, I can't put their charts up because of patient confidentiality. I mean, they've agreed for me to use their charts. But I have had a volunteer from a nice young man, and I will be posting a link to his chart, which I think I've saved it up on my website somewhere, but not this week, but next week I'll add a link to his chart so you can check it out. It's a pretty amazing chart, one-sided, and it's great. It's got a yod in there. It's fantastic. So the first 3 episodes we talk about chart shape. Now, why would we ever want to do that? Most of the time when people learn astrology, they learn things like the signs of the zodiac and the quadruplicities and the thisities and the thatities. And at first learning, when you first learn astrology, your poor little mind can just go into a frazzled wreck. And I found that, because I've been teaching astrology now for about 20-something years, people pick it up much quicker when all they need to do when they see a birth chart is just sort of look at the shape, because there's these random things, there's all these blibby blobby bits on there, but anybody can look at a circle and then determine whether or not everything that's in the circle is on one side or opposite each other, and these are the chart shapes that I'm talking about in the first 3 episodes. So when you first start learning astrology, having a clear understanding of the shape of the chart, because it represents the energies of the person's psyche, is very useful. Okay, so chapter 4, beg your pardon, episode 4, I'm talking about books now. Episode 4, we're discussing ascendants. The ascendant's the most important part of the chart, provided you've got a birth time, because the ascendant is determined by the time of birth. It's not the end of the world if you don't know it, but it means your chart's not going to be very accurate. In episode 5, we're talking about the sun in the chart. So now that's as much as most people know. They know what sign of the zodiac they are, and they talk about it as being a star sign. Now, in reality, astrology isn't about stars, it's about planets. Those are the things that whiz around the sun. And we whiz around the sun. We orbit the sun. And in the episode 5, we're talking about the sun in your chart. What's the symbol for it? Where is it? What does it mean? And knowing your ascendant, your sun sign and your moon sign, if that's all you can ever remember, that's marvellous, because that's more than your average punter will know. Because all anybody ever tends to know is their sign of the zodiac, and I might have to discuss that cusps. That's next week's episode. We're going to talk about cusps. No such thing, by the way. Let me write that to remind myself. Cusps next week. The sun in the chart is the sign of the zodiac, and astrologers talk about sun signs. They don't talk about star signs. I mean, if I do say star sign, it's only because everybody else flipping says it, and just to make it sound as if I'm not speaking a foreign language. But when you're talking about astrology, you're talking about your sign of the zodiac, the sign that you are, you're talking about the sign that your sun sign is in, and they change every month. Yeah, so they go from one sign to the next, from Aries all the way to Pisces. So knowing your sun sign, that's not your star sign, knowing your sun sign is important. That's episode 5. Episode 6, we went through the moon in your chart. The moon's about the emotions and the feelings. Episode 7, we're learning about Mercury, the planet of communication. Episode 8, we're learning about Venus, the goddess of love. Episode 9, we're learning about Mars in the chart. Episode 10, Jupiter, the happy planet. Rather like Jupiter, it's rather nice. Episode 11, we're discussing Saturn. Episode 12, we're discussing Mary's favourite planet, which is Uranus, which was discovered in Bath, where she lives. Episode 13, we're talking about Neptune. And episode 14, we're talking about Pluto, the most distant planet in our solar system. So once you get up to episode 14, you will have covered quite a lot of ground. So if you've got that far, well done, tick, tick, tick. Then we get to episode 15, and we're now talking about houses. So the house is basically the division of the circle of the chart. So you've got this lovely map of the heavens, and we're going to divide it up. And the divisions are started from the time of birth. So the chart is divided into the signs of the zodiac, which are equally distributed around the chart. And then the houses are also equally distributed if you use an equal house system, which is what Auntie Mary recommends. And the houses represent different areas of life, so that's putting it into a nutshell. Episode 16, we're talking about the meanings of all the houses. Episode 17, we're discussing the houses 7 to 12. So in 16, we're learning about 1 to 7, I think is what we did. Yes, 1 to 6. And then episode 17, we're doing the houses 7 to 12. Episode 18, we're talking about the qualities or quadruplicities, the cardinal, fixed and mutable. Episode 19, we're talking about aspects, that's relationships between one planet and another. Episode 20, aspect patterns. And episode 21, we're talking about a particular conjunction of Uranus and Neptune, which is, in my estimation, an indigo signature. Now, all the lessons after that are going in more detail about things like transits, progressions, secondary progressions, yods, synastry charts, composite charts, retrograde planets, and information about relationships. So if you've managed to listen all the way through right up to episode 28, you'll have pretty much a good grounding in astrology. I do recommend www.astro.com as your website to use, because anything else is going to cost you money, and the whole thing about podcasts is nobody ever wants to spend any money, which is fair enough, and you want to learn how to do it free, and why not use the free resources that are out there. And astro.com is fab. You can get a little bit of an analysis on there for your chart. There's a forum on there that you can stick questions on. There'll always be somebody that's bound to answer. Whether or not they give you the right answer is a different matter, but somebody will nearly always answer questions that are put on there. There's a lot of articles, and linked with astro.com is Astro Databank. That's another website that I was mentioning, and that's got listings of the birth times, birth data for numerous people. It's something like thousands of people are listed on there, and that was started by a lady called Lois. I can never pronounce her name. Hold on. Astro Databank, the lady that's, well, she didn't start the website. It was a written book originally. Lois Rodden, Lois. Do you pronounce that? Lewis Rodden. And so we now in astrology have a thing called a Rodden Rating, and a Rodden Rating is either A or I don't think we have a B. We've got A ratings, and A is terribly accurate, and a D rating is dirty data. B is probably not too sure. I can't remember if there is a B rating. I don't think there is. So keeping in mind that now that you've got to this place, so you've been able to look at a chart and to recognise this stuff, what I would like to make sure that you keep in mind, don't start making pronouncements about people's lives okay, just because you check the chart. It doesn't give you a license to say to people, oh, you've got such and such in your chart, therefore you're not going to know any of those things until you've studied astrology for an awful long time. And anyway, I think it's highly rude's the wrong word, unethical to say to somebody, because you've got this in your chart, X, Y, Z will happen. What you need to keep in mind is whatever you've got in a chart is a potential, it's not an actuality. Yeah, so you could have two people exactly the same charts, one goes off and becomes king and the other goes off and, I don't know, works in a supermarket. Yeah, it's your chart only shows you a potential, it's not an actuality. It can tell you a lot about yourself and your potential, but it isn't a predictive tool. If you start making pronouncements, don't make pronouncements. Promise me, okay? So I've got some fantastic news this week. My latest book, The Astrology of Lovers, How Astrology Can Help You Love Better, is definitely out now. And I mean, last week I mentioned it. This week it's now absolutely 100% published. I do have a book for each sign of the zodiac. Things like how to survive a Pisces, how to cheer up a Capricorn, how to bond with an Aquarius, how to listen to a Gemini. I've done one for each sign of the zodiac, but this particular book, gosh, it took me 5 years to write it, because I had to write another one in between. I started it 5 years ago, but it's called The Astrology of Lovers. And if you go to Amazon, just do it. You don't have to buy the book. Just go to Amazon, either .com or .co.uk, and just write in, if you wouldn't mind, just Google in the word The Astrology of Lovers. And hopefully, when you click enter, the cover of my book will come up. So there's it's a jolly nice blue colour. It's sort of like an RAF blue, and it's been designed by a chappie called David. And I'm really, really pleased about the way that it looks. I mean, it's an interesting because when I know, but there should come up twice. One copy will come up, will be the paperback, and the other will be the Kindle. And I've priced the Kindle at the publisher's priced it at $2.99, which is not a lot of money. And if you would like to read a little bit about how astrology can help you love better, then do whiz over to Amazon. Amazon is the only place that's selling it. You are not going to get it anywhere else. It's how many chapters have I got in there? I think I've got 8 chapters and 6 charts. I've got, gosh, I can't remember, let me look now. I have 8 chapters in there, and there's 6 charts in the book. And lots of instructions on, and more details on, how to find the right one, where to find them, how to do it, how to write letters to the universe. There's information about homeopathy in there. There's information about hypnotherapy. There's 2 free downloads in the Kindle book. They're also in the physical book as well. And they're little hypno tracks that are jolly useful. So do whiz over them, but just do me a favour, help my rankings by googling into the Amazon box The Astrology of Lovers, because there are a number of other books that are called Astrology for Lovers. This is different. This is The Astrology of Lovers. So the book is using as chart examples people that we know were very, very, very much in love with each other. And the 2 couples that I've used is Elizabeth Barrett Browning and her hubby Robert, and Yoko Ono and John Lennon, who you might have heard of. He was a Beatle, and they were very, very much in love with each other. Unfortunately, John Lennon was murdered. But while he was alive, he was besotted with Yoko, and she with him as well. Even though she was an Aquarius, she's not changed anything about the flat that they lived in when they were together. So I'd love it if you could just go over there and Google it. I'm not expecting you to buy the flipping thing if you don't want to, but to put that in the box means that my rankings change, yeah, and that'll help things. So next week we're going to talk about cusps. Okay, it's that dreaded question, is there such a thing as a cusp? And I'll explain next week why there isn't such a thing, and a bit more information about that. And I hope you have a fab week. So this week, as I said, it's just a little recap of what we've been through before. You should now, having listened to all these lessons, be able to look at a chart, make some sense of it, know what the heck I'm talking about, and be able to differentiate between all the little blobs and symbols and crazy things that are going on in there. And anyway, you can cheat most of the time because the charts that astro.com make up for you have got written in the little grid at the bottom the names of each planet, so you can look at a chart and know which bits are what. And they'll also give you some free information on there, which is good. So I hope you have a fab week. I'll be back next week, and I'll catch you soon. Thanks for listening. Bye bye now.